Hello, everyone, welcome back to the channel tonight. I want to take you through a dramatic and deeply complex development in the Middle East, one that's generating shockwaves across capitals and drawing fresh questions about deterrence, power projection, and the future of regional balance. Reports are circulating that Iran and Qatar have somehow stunned Israel overnight, that a major defensive tower was destroyed, and that the entire episode may mark a turning point in the ongoing confrontation. We'll walk through what is known, what is uncertain, and what it could all mean. To begin, let me emphasize, in today's information environment, claims of dramatic military successes must always be treated with caution. Open source intelligence, social media assertions, and state media all swirl together, sometimes amplifying exaggerations or propaganda. That said, there are kernels of fact here that warrant careful attention. Overnight, multiple outlets and regional analysts began describing an operation in which Iran, with alleged collusion or coordination involving Qatar, delivered a crippling blow to one of Israel's defensive installations. The phrase used by some is that a defense tower was destroyed and that Israel was stunned by the sudden nature of the strike. The impression being given is that Israel's defenses, assumed to be robust, were breached in a way that exposed vulnerabilities. So, what do we actually know? One key piece of verifiable information. On 23 June 2025, Iran launched missile strikes toward the Al Udeid air base in Qatar, which hosts a major U.S. military presence. Qatar and U.S. officials reported that Qatar's air defenses intercepted the missiles and that no casualties occurred. Satellite imagery later confirmed damage to a radome, a geodesic dome used for secure communications on the base. That dome housed a modernized enterprise terminal MET, a high-value communications node. The fact that such a component was hit offers a clue to the kinds of targets being pursued, not simply towers, but key nodes in a military communications or radar grid. That said, none of the concrete, well-documented sources firmly confirm the more sensational narrative that Iran and Qatar destroyed one of Israel's defense towers overnight. No credible mainstream reporting, at least as of now, substantiates the idea that Israel lost a major defensive installation in such a bold, coordinated strike. Many sources focus instead on missile launches, intercepts, and limited damage in Qatar, rather than a dramatic collapse inside Israel. This discrepancy raises a few possibilities. One is that the tower destroyed claim is hyperbole, an embellishment layered over some real, but more modest, tactical success. Another is that the strike inside Israel, if it occurred, has not been publicly confirmed or independently verified yet. A third possibility is that there has been disinformation or noise intentionally introduced for propaganda effect. But let's explore the logic and implications as if there is at least some truth to the claim, because it helps us frame why people are paying attention. First, if a significant part of Israel's defensive infrastructure were actually compromised, this would be a psychological blow as much as a military one. Israel's doctrine has long emphasized the strength of its air and missile defenses, Iron Dome, David's Sling, arrow systems, radar installations, and redundancy. To stun Israel means to undercut confidence in that shield, especially among the population, the military, and political leadership. Second, the involvement of Iran and Qatar, or at least the suggestion thereof, is worth probing. Iran has long been supporting armed groups and proxies in the region, but underground tensions with Israel have sometimes remained indirect. If Iran is stepping more overtly into strikes close to Israel, and indeed aiming to neutralize Israeli defensive assets, that could mark a more direct confrontation. Qatar's alleged role raises further questions. Was it logistical support, intelligence facilitation, or diplomatic cover? The fact that Iranian strikes hit a U.S. base on Qatari soil suggests a degree of willingness by Qatar to tolerate or at least absorb blowback. But again, Qatar publicly condemned the attack on its sovereignty. So perhaps Qatar's role is more subtle, supporting influence channels, mediation, or allowing attacks to traverse or use its airspace in exchange for political positioning. Third, the damage to that radar/dome in Qatar is illustrative. Taking down a key communication or radar node is not just symbolic. It degrades command, control, and situational awareness. If such targeting is part of a broader campaign to peel away Israel's defensive buffer layer by layer, the logic may be to create weak points to exploit later. Fourth, timing and signaling matter. If this operation or claimed operation did occur overnight and swiftly, it speaks to a confidence and audacity in execution. It sends a message for both internal consumption in Iran and allied states and external audiences, Israel, the U.S., Gulf states, that Iran retains capability, reach, and operational flexibility, that in itself is likely a strategic objective independent of physical destruction. However, we must not overstate. Israel, for its part, has powerful defending assets and substantial intelligence capacity. If one node is damaged, it may be compensated for through alternate radars or backups. Moreover, the story has yet to be validated by multiple independent, reliable observers. The lack of confirmed casualties or widespread damage suggests either a limited strike or overemphasis in narratives. We should also situate this in the broader context. In recent months, Israeli forces have conducted strikes across Iranian territory aimed at air defense networks, missile production, and strategic infrastructure, claiming success in degrading Iran's long-range capabilities. Some reports even suggest Israel has neutralized several of Iran's advanced systems, like the S-300 batteries. The war zone, with that in mind, a reversal or signal that Iran can strike Israel's infrastructure, is intended in part to reclaim initiative or threaten escalation. Diplomatically, the repercussions are already being felt. The strike on Qatar's base prompted diplomatic protests, region-wide airspace closures, and accelerated efforts toward a ceasefire in the Iran-Israel war. The very act of executing a strike with advanced missile systems and hitting a hive, node while avoiding major casualties suggests deliberate calibration, enough to project strength, but limited enough to avoid triggering uncontrollable escalation. Looking ahead, there are several scenarios to watch. Israel may respond swiftly, especially if it confirms damage to its defensive systems. That could mean asymmetric strikes, cyber attacks, or covert operations targeting Iranian infrastructure, either inside Iran or via proxy territory. Iran may interpret success in such an operation as license to escalate further. If it can strike inside Israeli territory or undermine defensive nodes, the confrontation could widen dangerously. Qatar's position will be under increasing scrutiny. Does it accept blowback, or will it seek to formally distance itself or shift alliances? The U.S. is central, given that the strike in Qatar involved a U.S. base. America's calculus is complicated. It must defend its interests, assure its partners, but avoid being dragged deeper into a direct war with Iran. Finally, on the battlefield, both sides may adapt. Israel could harden or conceal its critical nodes more aggressively, push for distributed, redundant networks and elevate counterintelligence. Iran and its allies may continue probing defenses to find gaps. In short, whether or not the dramatic version of Defense Tower destroyed is fully accurate, the momentum here is toward a more volatile, more direct confrontation. Each side is testing thresholds, probing defenses, and broadcasting signals that deterrence remains fragile. So what should we, as observers, take away? First, claims of spectacular success must be scrutinized. But even partial tactical penetrations can have outsized strategic impact in a region so densely contested. Second, the war is no longer purely proxy or confined. It is edging into direct state-on-state confrontation with all the risks that entails. Third, in such environments, narratives are weapons, amplifying a tower destroyed. Story may help one side impose psychological pressure or shape international perception, regardless of the precise damage. I'll close by emphasizing that as more intelligence and satellite imagery becomes available, we'll see clearer answers. For now, people around the world, from capitals in the Gulf to intelligence centers in Washington and Tel Aviv, are watching closely. What unfolds in the coming days may reshape more than just battle lines. It could redefine the assumptions that have underpinned Middle Eastern security for years. Thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments what angle you think is most credible, and I'll keep tracking this story closely and bring you updates as real evidence emerges.